Um, bear with me. Hi, everyone. My name's Sert. I'm codependent. Yeah, it's really nice to be here. It's really, really lovely, particularly to be in a sort of an international meeting. So thank you, and thank you to everyone who does service to make the meeting possible. Yeah, I'm gonna share on this piece of literature today, which I found really helpful, and obviously in preparation for this workshop, I sort of reread it again recently, because normally what I do is I keep this and some other pamphlets, I keep them by my bedside, because I find that really helpful for me to just stay connected to my program. I'll just sort of give a little brief background on sort of how I came into CoDA, because it is pertinent to this literature. So I've been in CoDA for a good couple of years now. It's probably about 6 years. I've been in CoDA, and I can honestly say that, you know, it works if you work it. And my life has really transformed, and my relationships have really transformed. They're by no means perfect, and life is by no means perfect, but I'm really grateful, and I will say proud of myself, that I've persevered in this fellowship, because by working this program, things have definitely improved for me. There is a line in this pamphlet that says, it talks about relationship addiction, and it says, many people join the Fellowship of Codependence Anonymous after a relationship has ended painfully. That wasn't quite the case for me. I was in a very painful relationship, which I'd started, I think, approximately 3 months after a very painful relationship. I was in a relationship for approximately 14 years, and that ended, and I monkey barred straight into another relationship, which, to be honest, from the very beginning was quite dysfunctional, was quite toxic, was quite unhealthy. And, you know, I was quite unhealthy, and I would say I was quite toxic as well. I mean, I can't outsource that entirely to somebody else. And so I was in a very, very painful relationship, and it was that pain that led me to the rooms, really. And, you know, I firmly believe in higher power. I didn't before I got into this fellowship. I absolutely do now. I've got a really strong connection to my higher power. And I believe that higher power wanted me to go through that process. You know, I was supposed to be in that really painful relationship so that I could find my way into recovery. And, you know, I was slightly deluded in the beginning, because I thought I would come to CoDA and that would help improve that relationship. And I guess that's where the name of this piece of literature is really pertinent, because what I was able to do is to start peeling the onion, and I realized that it wasn't about that one relationship. It was about all the relationships in my life. It was about, you know, my own mechanisms, and learning to understand those, and learning to understand, you know, my dysfunctional family of origin, how that impacted me, you know, all of the unhealthy traits of being codependent. And so, you know, a large part of the program is, you know, is meetings, is step work, it's sponsorship, if you're lucky enough to get a sponsor in this program. You know, and I really threw myself into it. I've got to say, again, in hindsight, I did really throw myself into recovery. And, you know, I just attended a lot of meetings, found a sponsor quite quickly, worked the steps, and literature was a really, really important part of that, because it was another way of getting identification. So I'd go into meetings and I'd listen to people and get, and I'd hear recovery stories in the rooms. But reading this literature, reading the big book in particular, and getting those other perspectives and those other recovery stories really just made me feel comfortable, and they made me feel less isolated, less like I was, this sort of special, strange specimen of human being, and helped me to understand that this thing called codependency is very real, and there are very common threads that run through it, and that I can identify with other people, and in them sharing their stories, it makes me feel just a little bit more comfortable. So I started off with the big book, and then the green book, working the steps. And I'd go to meetings and I'd pick, here in the UK, we often have these pamphlets, leaflets sold in the meetings, and sometimes they're read in meetings as well. And, it's almost like line for line, I just get identification. This, peeling the onion, I mean, it's in the name, really. It's all in the name, So when I first came into recovery, I was just this big, and I don't want to say, like, sort of slightly rotten onion, and I just felt a lot of dis-ease in myself and in my relationships, and I didn't really know why. And I know that I'd always felt like that, particularly with my familial relationships. I just couldn't pinpoint what it was, and I used to think that it was me, and that I was the problem, and a lot of the time I was. I'm not going to deny that, but peeling the onion to sort of slowly reveal all of the layers of stuff that's going on, all of the very complex layers of codependency, because it is very, very complex for me. My codependency manifests in so many different ways in any given day, so it is a very complex thing to talk about, and it's a very complex thing to understand. And so the literature was a great way for me to just to learn to understand. And I love the way this literature is written. It's so simple, anyone can understand it. And if you have any sort of slight feeling that that something's not right, and you sort of gravitate towards codependency, I think this literature just helps explain things really easily. And I guess the name, peeling the onion, is obvious. It's about peeling the layers to get to, for me, my authentic self, because a lot of this stuff is just my stuff. It was stuff that was handed to me. It was stuff that I saw, I experienced, and stuff that I adapted to. These mechanisms, or sometimes they're referred to as defects of character, were my mechanisms that I had to adapt to because of what was going on around me. And it's, peeling the onion is about getting back to authentic self, And what I really like about this booklet or pamphlet, sorry, is there's a lot of talk of fear in this piece of literature. There's the fear of not being enough, fear of our feelings, fear of being alone, and that, for me, sort of having that explained to me, and explained what that fear is, why it exists, how it came to be, just again makes me feel, it gives me a sense of peace, because it makes me feel I'm able to understand myself more and accept these feelings of fear. because sometimes this fear can overwhelm me and I'm not sure what the fear is about, but having it sort of laid out to me in black and white helps me to understand and gives me a sense of calm. So I like that there's a lot of there's a lot here about fear. There's there's fear of intimacy, and then it talks about anorexia as well, which was not something I ostensibly, it talks about sexual anorexia and relationship anorexia. And that wasn't something that I immediately necessarily identified with. I'd heard of the term, but I thought, oh, no, that's not me. I just sort of throw myself into relationships and I get overwhelmed and, just caught up in a whirlwind. But actually, again, having it broken down in black and white and explained made me realize, oh, no, there are elements of that which do relate to me, which do apply and which I do relate to. So that was really useful. And then it talks about the characteristics and traits of codependency, which is common in all of the other literature. We have it in the big book, we have it in the green book, but what there are these sort of short little recovery stories underneath. And again, I find that really helpful. And it's really important for me to go and have, like I say, I keep these by my bedside. And it's really important for me to be able to go in and look at the characteristics and traits of codependent. And that is because, as I say, I am codependent. I'm a recovering codependent, but I will always be codependent. My codependency is so deeply rooted in me that, as I say, it's there and it will always be there. And I accept that as a part of who I am. That's okay. But sometimes it's difficult for me to identify my feelings. I'm a codependent, so I find it hard to really be able to dig deep and work out what I'm feeling and why. But I know that there is disease. I'm feeling wobbly or wonky, and it's good for me able to look at the characteristics and traits and go, oh, right, that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling that. I'm in denial, or I'm in avoidance, or I'm in low self-esteem, and having it broken down for me. Now, recently, I read this in another piece of literature. It's not this one, but it's a really simple line in the literature that says, what is codependency? And that's a question I still struggle with today, when I talk about it with other fellows, or in the circumstance where I'm trying to explain it to somebody, what is codependency? Recently, a situation where I started a new romantic relationship and I'd been in it for a few months, and I thought it was time to disclose, that I'm in a program and that I'm working a program, and it suddenly became a thing. It was a big deal. How do I explain what is codependency to someone? And I read this in a book, really, in one of these pamphlets recently, and it just said, codependency is when I'm not in serenity. That's it. And I love that. And that brings me back to this book. Serenity is me peeling the onion to get to my authentic self. And how do I peel the onion? I work the program. I work the program of Codependence Anonymous. I go to meetings, I pick up the phone, I journal, I, speak to my sponsor. I'm a sponsor. I've got sponsees now, so that helps me move towards serenity. And I can feel it in my life. When I don't do those things, I start to feel dis-ease, and I'm moving further and further away from serenity and further away from my authentic self. And then there's a bit in this sort of table here where it's talking about, I don't know if you can see that, sorry, it's a bit there's a glare, but it talks about codependent relationships and authentic relationships. And I remember when I first read this, it just blew my mind, because it sort of lists codependent relationships and what they look like, the characteristics and traits, if you like, of codependent relationships and how unhealthy they are. And then next to it lists authentic relationships and what they should look like. And it was like reading another language to me. It was almost like someone had given me a sheet of Japanese and asked me to interpret it. It just blew my mind. I just couldn't understand that this is how authentic relationships should work, because the codependent relationships felt so normal to me. And to have an example of and a comparison of what something healthy looks like is really, really useful. And again, it's something that I have to refer to still quite regularly, because I can still get lost, and I need this stuff to guide me. I need this literature to guide me, you know, as well as higher power, as well as prayer, to have it in black and white, you know, as something I can just, in text that I can just pick up when I need to, and just get me back on the straight and narrow when it comes to recovery, is really useful. So yeah, I really love these pamphlets. And you know, I did say I'd talk about peeling the onion, but others that I like are Making Choices. Sorry, that's my time. That's another one, Making Choices, and the 12-piece relationship toolkit. Again, just there's so much wisdom in here, and they're just really easy to sort of, like I say, have near me, or when I'm traveling, take with me, and just, yeah, keep me connected to my program. You know, and it's just these pamphlets are just another, you know, another one of the many tools and gifts that we're given in recovery, or I'm given in recovery. You know, and it's just a matter of remembering to pick up the tools when I need to. So it's been really nice to have been asked to share on the literature, because as I say, it gave me another opportunity to just dig that bit deeper. So thank you for letting me share, and as I say, thank you for everyone who's done service to put this meeting together. I'll leave it there. Thank you.